I know English better, my vocabulary is better, but I feel like French is a language that belongs to me more, that is part of my life, that is part of my being, that is part of my soul. So the lesson here is, once again, that something has got to give if you become a polyglot. The most important thing I would say here, the lesson I've learned, is that it does not matter where you live when it comes to learning a language. It matters how you live and with whom you spend your time. Bonjour, buongiorno, merhaba. Hi guys. I started my YouTube adventure on May 22nd, 2008. It's been 17 years. I've been, 17 years on YouTube. I'm that old. And today I wanted to make a very special reaction video to my very first video that I made that fateful day. I still remember that I was in Barcelona for an Erasmus project, student exchange project. And I had just watched a very jarring video of a guy who was showcasing his language skills. He was French, but that's not the reason why he was arrogant. He was just had a very bad demeanor, and he got absolutely obliterated in the comment section. And the previous day I had watched an amazing video from Stu J. Rai, or Stu J. Raj, or Stu J. Ray, who's up to this day one of my favorite polyglot heroes. So the good and the bad pushed me to think, hey, I know a couple of languages myself. Why not showcase my language skills? Why not share my passion for language learning? And so it happened. I just grabbed a very crappy camera that was the only camera I had. I just sat down on the balcony and wearing my pajamas. I did not care about how I looked, and I made that fateful video that really changed my life. I hope you like it. Let's get started.
Hi YouTube viewers. I'm Luca. I'm from Italy, and I saw that there's a lot of people who put some videos on the YouTube about them speaking different languages. So I just wanted to participate. I wanted to be part of the group of speakers of foreign languages. I'm speaking.
This is already very, very cringe. Like, look at the hair. It's pretty disheveled. I still remember exactly why and when and how this whole thing happened. I grabbed the very first thing that came to my mind, which was the only camera I had. It was pretty crappy, pardon my French. And then I just sat down and I recorded this video. And as you can see here, no, you can't actually see it. I'm wearing my pajamas, just so that you know.
Speaking English. I'm from Italy, as I told you, but I'm speaking English as an introduction. I hope, because it's the most common language, I hope that everybody understands this introduction. And so I'm going to make more or less a list of my languages, and then I'm going to speak some phrases, even if it's not, it's like I'm trying to demonstrate that I can speak some of the languages, but it's not easy, it's just going to be a 10-minute video, more or less. And hope I'm not going to bore you.
The thing that strikes me immediately is the fact that the quality of my voice has a distinctive tone to it, meaning that there's an evident cadence, foreign rhythm, apart from the pronunciation. And also my voice is a little bit strange, probably because I was younger, but it's kind of a little bit awkward and embarrassing to listen to yourself, especially when so much time has gone by. Your voice is different. The hair is disheveled, and the English was not that great. But I still believe that at that time in 2008, I spoke English fluently, but I think I've made a lot of progress. The one thing that strikes me the most is how much progress I've made in terms of fluency, but also accent-wise. I think I speak English much better now. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I speak exactly like a native, which is not true. I always make pronunciation mistakes, or the occasional slip of the tongue, and et cetera, but I've made a lot of progress. And the main reason is not because I've spoken the language a lot. I have, but mainly because from that moment on, I listen to a lot of content, especially on YouTube. And as I always say, a massive input really makes a difference. Whether you are a beginner, an intermediate, or at an advanced level, there's always space for maneuver and space for improvement, as they say. So I can already tell that I've made a lot of progress in the last 17 years, even if I have to say that I already spoke English well, I think.
The first language is English, second language is Italian, è la mia lingua, quindi non ho fatto grossi sforzi ad impararla, e niente, sono italiano e sono di Roma, quindi questa, vabbè, è chiaro che essendo italiano, no?
The only comment here, because we're talking about my own native language, is that I finish this mini speech by saying it's evident that since it's Italian, and then I don't continue. I just wanted to say probably that since it's my mother tongue, there's not much to comment. I just learned it as my mother tongue, so I didn't make much effort. That's what I wanted to say in the video.
The third language is going to be French. Bonjour à tout le monde, je suis italien, mais je parle un peu français, je l'ai appris à l'école. Lorsque j'avais 16 ans plus ou moins, je regardais toujours la télévision, j'avais Antenne 2, c'était très bien, et après j'ai continué, j'avais une prof extraordinaire de français à l'école. Et après, comme je vous ai dit, j'ai regardé beaucoup de télévision, mais ça faisait beaucoup de temps que je parlais pas français. Et après j'ai rencontré une fille qui était très belle, qui est très belle en fait, donc c'était ma copine, et donc lorsque j'ai rencontré, j'avais un peu de difficulté à parler français. Ça fait un an parce que ça faisait beaucoup de temps que je parlais plus, mais maintenant je parle mieux parce que je pratique la langue toujours avec elle, et donc pas de problème. Bon, pas de problème. Mais on se comprend très bien, et donc je suis content parce qu'en plus le français c'est une langue qui me plaît beaucoup.
So there's a lot of observations I want to make. The first one is that I think at this time it was May 2008. I already spoke English. I already spoke French well. And the main reason is because I had met my ex-girlfriend, as I say in the video, Agnès. And in a span of a few months, my French skills skyrocketed. Back in 2007, when I met her at the hostel, I spoke French well in the sense that I spoke it, I could communicate, but I still remember that I recorded a short video with her on Pont Charles. It gets copied in French. And Pont Charles is a Charles Bridge in Prague, which is very famous. There's a lot of tourists strolling by. And I remember that I had an accent à couper au couteau, which in French means I had a very thick foreign accent when I spoke French. I still remember that because I have the recording to this day. And since I got into a relationship with Agnès, I started speaking French every single day, on at least 2 hours, especially on the phone, because she went back to Paris and I was in Rome. And my French skyrocketed in a matter of months. So I already had accumulated what I call a critical mass, in the sense that I've been learning French for a lot of years. I had read, I watched a lot of TV, but then I lacked practice. I didn't speak. I hadn't spoken to that until that fateful day where I met Agnes. I hadn't really spoken French with native speakers, and then everything changed in a matter of, months. So I met her in July 2007, and this is May 2008. I already made a huge progress, and then of course it got better and better because I lived in France. I moved to Paris for her. And then I spent a lot of time with her family. I still remember we used to watch French TVs from the 50s. We did some, debates. They were really passionate about the French language, their own native language. And so, I think that living the language in country really makes a huge difference. And I think that French to this day is a language that is in me. It's one of my best languages, not so much in terms of, words and expressions. I think I still speak English better. I know English better. My vocabulary is better. But I feel like French is a language that belongs to me more, that is part of my life, that is part of my being, that is part of my soul, so to speak, because I lived it. I saw how native speakers interpret it, use it, love it, etc., in the environment. Because not only did I spend a lot of time in France, I spent a lot of time with Agnes, I spent a lot of time with her friends, with her family, and also on top of all that, I attended a conference interpreting school where the very first thing that they told us is, C2, you got a C2 in French or German or Italian or whatever, that's only the beginning, so it gives you an idea of the kind of standards that they required.
The fourth language is going to be German. Wirklich, Deutsch habe ich vor langer Zeit nicht mehr gesprochen, aber ich hoffe eigentlich, dass ihr mich gut versteht, denn ich habe Deutsch für Jahre gelernt, aber natürlicherweise vergisst man eine Sprache, wenn man es nicht praktiziert. Ich habe es vor langer Zeit nicht mehr gesprochen, und wenn ich Deutsche treffe, ich weiß nicht, aber ich spreche mit den Englisch. Viele Male spreche ich mit den auf Englisch, aber normalerweise, wenn ich eine Deutsche hoffentlich treffe, bin ich sehr froh, wenn ich die Möglichkeit habe, mit dir auf Deutsch zu sprechen.
I can already tell that differently from English, French, and Spanish, German was kind of rusty, but that is because I had been learning the language for quite some time, from 1996 to be precise, with the D'Agostini course. But the main problem is I had never really spoken it that much. I had spoken it on and off with some native speakers here and there, especially in Sardinia. When I was in Sardinia, I recount this in my book, The 10 Essential Elements of Smart Language Learning. But the reality is I hadn't gotten so much speaking practice, and you can definitely tell by the way I speak here. I stumble upon some words. I use the right words in certain contexts, like, for example, I say praktizieren. Actually, the verb to practice a language is üben. So, just to give you an idea, a couple of other mistakes here and there, syntax. And I hesitate in some parts because I have to think, I have to search in my memory bank what to say, etc. So I was a little bit rusty. And I have to say, though, that over the last 17 years, I've improved my German a lot. And one of the main reasons was because, as I said before, I attended a conference interpreting school in Paris, where they required a very, very high level. And I remember I had a few months to prepare when the director of the school said, before I got into the school, your level of German has to be extremely high. And so I started watching the Tatort, Krimiserie, almost every day. Started listening to the radio every single day for 30 minutes, Echo des Tages. And I was just trying to get out of my comfort zone as much as possible. I also passed the Goethe-Institut Zertifikat ZOP. I think it was something like that. I don't remember exactly what it means, but it's Zentraloberstufe something. It was a C2, so that was in 2010. And passing the exam, or having to pass the exam, and having to attend this conference interpreting school where they required a very high level, really forced me to do things I would have not done myself and by myself, like writing essays, writing a journal, speaking with my friend Richard at the time. Richard, you're the man. He speaks a lot of languages. So I was practicing with him. I was writing, again, journals, dissertations. I was listening to the radio. I was watching television and taking notes, and all that really helped, taking my German to the next level. Oh, and I forgot that I used to read a lot of Der Spiegel, especially in the bathroom, for at least 15 minutes a day. So that really made a difference. And as I always say, if you want to reach the upper echelons of language learning, you have to read, and you have to read a lot of anything.
And the fifth language is going to be Spanish. El español. Estamos en España, estamos en Barcelona. Aquí soy de Erasmus en Barcelona. Me marcho dentro de un mes, me voy a marchar a Italia de nuevo. Ha sido una experiencia fenomenal. Lo único es que aquí en Cataluña se habla menos español y más catalán. Bueno, si quieres hablar español con las personas, generalmente le hablas en español y te contestan en español. Pero normalmente he escuchado mucho catalán, y además en la universidad se habla en catalán. Así que, que quizás puede aprender el catalán también, no sé. Pero ya es suficiente el español, creo. Y el español lo he aprendido con un curso que se llama el Planeta Agostini, como el alemán, el mismo curso. Pero la diferencia entre el alemán y el español es que fundamentalmente el español es mucho más fácil, porque la gramática y el idioma general son muy parecidos, y esto de verdad que no es un problema. O sea que aprender el español no es un problema.
So the first thing is that I think at the time I already spoke Spanish well, accent-wise, pronunciation-wise. I think in Barcelona they sometimes mistook me for a native speaker. They thought I was a native speaker. Oh, eres de, no sé, Guadalajara, de Zaragoza, o no sé qué. But the reality is that thinking about it, in retrospect, my level of Spanish was a solid B2. Well, now probably it's more C1, C2, because again, over the last 17 years, I've done a lot of things when it comes to Spanish. I've been reading a lot. I've been talking to a lot of people. I visited Spain a lot. And the most important thing I would say here, the lesson I've learned, is that it does not matter where you live when it comes to learning a language. It matters how you live and with whom you spend your time. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that when I was in Barcelona, as I said in the video, I spent most of my time either speaking Italian or speaking other languages. Spanish, not that much, because university was in Catalan. I still remember to this day the first time I landed there, and it looked like a Martian had landed on planet Earth. They looked at me and said, "Who's this guy?" Right? A foreigner. And also, I had a quick exchange with a teacher. I remember he said, "Oh, there's a new guy," and then we started speaking. I told him I'm Italian, and he addressed me in Spanish because I did not know Catalan, and I told him. But then he said something along the lines of "Estamos en Barcelona y desgraciadamente o no desgraciadamente, gracias a Dios, hablamos catalán aquí." So I had no option but to listen to Catalan the whole day when I was at university, which was totally fine. I did not complain. But my point is that I did not speak Spanish that much in Spain. While back in Italy, I had the chance of speaking Spanish all the time. And I was speaking Spanish all the time because I had Spanish friends, I had colleagues. So really, I was spending my time reading, comics and El País, many books. So what really matters is how you spend your time at your place, but also the people you see, and you in a cosmopolitan city like Rome, you get a chance of speaking Spanish quite a lot. So that is the thing that struck me the most, is that in those 6 months that I lived in Barcelona, I did not speak Spanish that much. So when people say, "Oh, you lived in Barcelona, that's the reason why you speak Spanish," well, or you lived in Spain for that matter, and I say, well, yes and no. Of course, if you live in country, if you happen to live in Spain or in Germany or whatever, and then you already have a decent level, let's say B1, that really helps develop your skills if you take the time to blend in and spend time with the natives, with native speakers, instead of just sticking to your bubble, which is the case for many expats, as they call them.
The sixth language is going to be Dutch. Hallo, ik kan in het Nederlands spreken. Ik heb haar al lang niet meer gesproken, maar ik krijg, die zaak is, ik krijg nooit de mogelijkheid in het Nederlands te spreken, omdat, ik weet het niet, maar eigenlijk als ik als ik met Nederlanders spreek, spreek ik altijd in het Engels. Ik weet het niet, maar het is gemakkelijker en eigenlijk is het gemakkelijker in het Engels te communiceren als het in het Nederlands een conversatie hebben. Maar ik kan boeken lezen zonder problemen en Nederlands en Duits zijn heel gelijk.
It's kind of cute how I speak Dutch here. I can tell that my pronunciation at some points is not great. For example, I say maar instead of maar. It's slightly different, and I have a foreign accent, a clear and evident foreign accent here. Not that I speak perfect Nederlands nu. Sorry, switching to Nederlands. But I have to say, I think I had already a good pronunciation, and the thing applies here that applies to German, meaning that I hadn't never really spoken Dutch, Nederlands that much. I'd been, listening to stuff here and there, but really nothing to write home about, as I said. And I was a little bit rusty. That's why I'm searching for words, for expressions. You can see here, searching for in my memory bank, looking somewhere else off camera. But Dutch is a beautiful language. The lesson that I've learned by learning Dutch is that something's gotta give, as they say. When you start learning a lot of languages, it's like your family is getting bigger. You have more and more family members. You have the newborn, or you even have twins if you're learning 2 languages from scratch. But at the same time, you have other languages you have to take care of. The more languages, and then the more effort and the more energy. And Nederlands is one of the languages that took was a little bit in the back burner, as they say, over the last 17 years. I've been using it on and off. I lived with a Dutch girl, and I used to speak with her a little bit of Nederlands, but mainly in Italian. But I used to speak Nederlands too, Dutch too. But Nederlanders schakelen heel snel naar het Engels in het algemeen. Helaas pindakaas. So that's the reason why at the end of the day I didn't speak Dutch that much. But the lesson here is, once again, that something has got to give. If you become a polyglot, you speak multiple languages. There are some languages that come to the fore depending on your life circumstances and your life, the ebb and flow of life, as they say.
And the 7th language is going to be Swedish. Jag älskar det svenska språk för att jag vet inte, men min ex-flicka visste att jag älskar språken, så hon sa till mig, ja, du vet inget norskspråket, och jag ville lära svenska, och hon gav mig en kurs, och jag har försökt att lära mig svenska, och jag Jag lärde det för 2 år och sen har jag träffat tjejer, norskar, men de kan prata på svenska. Och vänner från Stockholm också, och så kan jag prata och kommunicera, även om naturligtvis är det lättare att kommunicera på engelska, men jag försöker alltid när jag träffar svenskar att prata på svenska.
Herregud, vilken grov brytning jag hade. Meaning that my accent was a coupé au couteau, as the French would say. I had a clearly thick foreign accent when I spoke Spanish. I'm sorry, when I spoke Swedish in this video. And one of the lessons I've learned from learning Swedish, I talk about this all the time on my YouTube channel, and not only on my YouTube channel, is the fact that if you want to get good pronunciation, you have to pay attention to its nuts and bolts, its quirks, its characteristics, features, whatever you want to call them, from the very beginning, because if you get them right, then it's way easier down the line. But if you get them wrong, it's way more difficult to actually, let's say, untie the Gordian knot that forms in your head, because you develop patterns, and human beings are very good at learning, but not very good at unlearning. So what happened here is that I did not care that much about pronunciation, or better said, I did not pay attention to the fact that Swedish is a semi tonal language, speaking of pronunciation, and meaning that, for example, words are pronounced in different ways with different tones. And that's why Swedish sounds the way it sounds like jag pratar svenska för att ba 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 ba, right? So that's what I've learned, that since I'm really interested in pronouncing, language as well, because I think pronunciation is like a dress, a beautiful dress that you put on your language skills, you make them shine. I definitely neglected this one aspect in Swedish, which is really important, and it shows here, you can tell. And then what I did is try to fix my pronunciation. I think I still speak Swedish with an accent. They call it brytning, and that's fine. You don't have to be perfect when you speak a language, but I think I've definitely made a lot of progress when it comes to Swedish. I've been reading a lot of books. I've been watching a lot of movies and TV series. I love Scandinavia and the Scandinavian culture. I've improved my accent. Does it sound native or native-like? Nope. And it doesn't matter. Det spelar ingen roll.
And the eighth language is going to be Russian. There's no...
Here I can tell you, I'm just doing this because I'm getting like, what the hell? Now, what am I going to say here? We've gotten to the end of the video. I have to finish this video, but I know what to say.
Русский язык не говорил. Мне трудно говорить по-русски, но, the Russian language,
There you go. I switched back to English. I said a couple of sentences because I knew for a fact that my Russian there was not that great. I had started in 2004, but I've just covered Asimil, and I had a very awkward situation, kind of cringy situation with a Ukrainian girl. We took a stroll. And she didn't speak any other language but Russian, and that was very painful because I realized a couple of years down the line that I had just done Asimil, and the reality is I couldn't speak Russian at all. I understood a few words here and there, and I just tried to get my point across, but my Russian was a disaster. For 4 years, I almost dropped it, right? Starting in 2004, I did Asimil for 3-4 months, and then I dropped it. And then this one video gave me the motivation to go back to it. So this happened in May 22nd of May 2008. Then in September I started I got back into Russian again, and my friend and polyglot Amir really helped me there. He taught me slang, and we had conversations in Russian. He was very patient, and then it got better and better, and then I got to know my Russian ex-girlfriend. I went to Moscow. I was in Russia multiple times, and my Russian has skyrocketed from there because I've been reading a lot of stuff, listening to a lot of stuff, used the language in country, used the language with my ex-girlfriend. So, I moved from, I wouldn't go so far as to say from zero to hero. I think I have a solid B2 in Russian, maybe a little bit more. But it just shows that you can start a language from scratch. You can even drop it for a couple of years, 4 years in my case, and then you can resume it with a vengeance.
I gotta get started again. I learned it for 3 years, but right now it's kind of tough. But starting again in a couple of weeks, and hopefully it's going to get better. So I just hopefully you enjoy the video, and we'll see you sometime soon. Ciao.
A cute ending. So there you have it, guys. I hope you like the old version and the new version of me in one video. But jokes aside, I wanted to share 3 big lessons that I've drawn from watching this video and from the, my life learning all these languages over the last 17 years, 30 years actually. And the first one is just do it. I just did that video. I did not think about whether, the audio was good, the hair was good. The hair was, I was quite disheveled and I was wearing my pajamas. True story. Maybe you haven't noticed. But the reality is, just do it. If you want to do something, just do it, because as they say in Spanish, el perfecto es el enemigo de lo bueno. Better do something not in an ideal way and then improve upon it than not doing anything at all. The second one is, I've noticed how much I've actually improved when it comes to language learning. I've moved from language amateur, because in 2008 I was still a language amateur, language learning and languages were a hobby, to a professional. I've been, working as a coach in 2010 after that fateful video 2 years later. And then now I have my Smart Language Learning Academy. So I manage a school, an academy with hundreds of students, and I'm very happy that I can share my passion with other people. And the third lesson is that, maybe the most important, is that language learning is humbling. Learning languages is a humbling experience. What you do not know always exceeds what you know, no matter at which point you find yourself in the language learning path, on your language learning path. So I just wanted to say, conclude this video by saying that I'm really grateful that I can do this job. I can share my passion with you. I can keep learning languages, and I can continue improving my craft of learning languages, and also trying to help you learn 1, 2, 3 or more languages. Thank you very much for everything, because really I would not be here if it were not for all your enthusiasm, your kind words, and your love. Thank you again. Happy language learning, and see you in the next video.